Well, journalists say, follow the money. We physicists say, follow the evidence. Follow the people who have access to the evidence. Now, this is right out of a Hollywood script. In the past, we've had farmers and suburbanites say they saw something out there. The burden of proof was on them to prove that they were extraterrestrial visitations. Now the burden of proof has shifted. Now the Pentagon has to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. And now we have this senior Pentagon official, former Pentagon official David Garouche, who says that there are evidence of not just the wreckage of UFOs, but an intact vessel, perhaps even the bodies. And again, the difference is that this is no longer just a farmer or a suburbanite saying they saw something out there. Now there is a debate within the Pentagon itself at the highest level, with different people within the military contradicting each other. And so I think that this is a good thing, because now perhaps the truth will come out.
So one of the claims that David Grush makes is that the evidence he has witnessed suggests that of the crash wreckage, some of the crash wreckage that's been retrieved, the elements are not of human origin. And he also states that they've recovered pilots, maybe singular, but it seemed as though it was of non-human species. And I can only imagine that that sort of gets your spidey senses tingling. What are your thoughts about that kind of possibility?
Well, I'm a scientist. We have to be open to the truth and to data. That's what we physicists work on. The more information we get, the better. Now, so far, we have not seen the smoking gun. We have not seen evidence of DNA, for example, from these alien bodies. We haven't seen alien transistors and alien circuits. That would clinch it right there. No ifs, ands, or buts. As soon as we have alien DNA or an alien chip, end of story. However, we're not there yet, because we just have eyewitness accounts of people who've encountered these things, but we don't have the smoking gun. And until we have the smoking gun, we scientists have to reserve our final judgment. But the very fact that we're talking about this at all is amazing. The burden of proof has shifted. Now the Pentagon has to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. This is, I think, a milestone.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you and I are talking about this, and not because it was on, News of the World or a supermarket tabloid, is pretty remarkable. This is coming from a man who was an Air Force veteran, former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. He's a whistleblower. He's not, a quack. And so I'm, on one hand, I can't quite believe that there's a non-human pilot that was recovered. On the other hand, sometimes I wonder if we just think we're way smarter than we are. And by the way, Dr. Kaku, you're one of the smartest people I've ever encountered. Do you sometimes think we're only at the nascence of universal knowledge?
Yeah, I think we're just beginning to understand how gorgeous this universe is. The fact that we've now seen so many planets orbiting other star systems, they could be homeworlds to other intelligent beings. And we now have a census of the Milky Way galaxy. Every star, on average, has a planet going around it. In other words, think about it, 100 billion planets minimum in your backyard in the Milky Way galaxy. And that's why I think that to assume that there's nobody out there is ridiculous. Of course they're out there. The only debate is to whether or not they can reach us, but yes, they are out there.
Well, then there's the debate, discussion, or fear, you can pick any of those, that they may be unfriendlies, they may be hostile. They may look at us as a nuisance rather than something that's fascinating, if that is the fact, if they do actually exist. Can you speak to the issue of hostility? And this, it seems like we're talking pie in the sky here, but if there is an issue of hostility, do we globally have a scientific community that can convince our political leaders around the world that we are far stronger as one than trying to be the leaders in whatever our programs are discovering?
Well, if you walk down a trail in a forest and you encounter a squirrel, do you go out there and try to conquer the squirrel and his habitat? No, maybe you want to try to talk to the squirrel Eventually, you get kind of bored because the squirrels don't talk back to you. But in the same way, if the aliens can reach us from outer space, they are hundreds, thousands of years more advanced than us, and we're simply not a threat to them. They could have done damage to us decades ago, but here we are talking about it. So I don't fear for them. However, there's always a possibility of what happened to Montezuma in Mexico City when Cortez and his troops came. The Cortez had gunpowder, he had the horse, he had, we think, smallpox, he had all the weaponry necessary to devastate the Mexican civilization. And so I think that we should not reach out to them and advertise our existence until we know what their intentions are. So I'm all in favor of the SETI project, which is to scan the heavens to look for intelligent life in outer space. But I don't think we should deliberately announce our existence to the alien neighbors we have in our neighborhood until we find out what their intentions are.